In the heart of ancient Rome, a city built on glory, blood, and temptation, there lived a woman whose name would echo through the ages as the embodiment of lust and corruption, Valeria Messalina. She wasn't just the wife of an emperor. She was the storm that nearly tore an empire apart. Rome was the capital of the world, the center of power where senators plotted, generals killed, and emperors ruled as gods. But behind the marble walls of the imperial palace, one woman was silently pulling every string, turning desire into domination and love into a weapon. Messalina was born into privilege, a descendant of the Julian bloodline, kin to Augustus himself. From birth, she understood that in Rome, survival wasn't about strength or virtue, it was about control. And the easiest way to control a man was through pleasure. When she married Emperor Claudius, she was barely 18. Claudius was old, awkward, and mocked by his own court. But Messalina saw something in him that no one else did: opportunity. Her beauty, her innocence, and her intoxicating charm made her irresistible. Within months, she became not only his wife but the most powerful woman in the empire. Yet power for Messalina was never enough. The moment she entered the palace, she began to explore its darkest corners, both politically and physically. She seduced guards, senators, even slaves, using their bodies as currency for her ambitions. By day, she played the role of the perfect empress. By night, she transformed into something else entirely. Disguised beneath a veil, she slipped into the brothels of Rome, selling herself not for gold but for thrill. There, among the lowest of women, she tested her power in its rawest form. Every man she conquered was another victory over the hypocrisy of Rome itself. Claudius, blind with affection, had no idea. When he asked where she had been, she'd smile and whisper sweet lies into his ear, while the scent of another man still lingered on her skin. But whispers began to spread through the marble halls of the palace. The senators spoke in hushed tones, afraid that a single wrong word would mean their death. Those who doubted her loyalty vanished mysteriously. Messalina had corrupted the empire's heart, replacing loyalty with lust and duty with desire. She rewarded her lovers with titles, lands, and power, creating a network of men who owed her everything, and would destroy anyone she wished. The palace became her playground, and Rome her captive audience. Yet, like all who rise too high, she grew careless. The hunger inside her turned into something dangerous, an obsession with being worshipped. She began to call herself Venus reborn. The goddess of love returned to earth, and she demanded that others bow before her. Her beauty was now an empire of its own, and every man who looked into her eyes became her slave. But power and pleasure cannot coexist forever. In her quest for dominance, she met a man named Gaius Silius, a handsome and ambitious senator. For the first time, Messalina found herself consumed by something she couldn't control: true infatuation. Silius wasn't like the others. He was daring, proud, and unafraid of the Empress's reputation. Their affair burned hotter than anything Rome had ever witnessed, and soon it was no secret. Then, in a moment of madness or arrogance, Messalina crossed a line even she couldn't return from. While Claudius still lived, she married Silius in a public ceremony, celebrating her betrayal in the open streets of Rome. It was not just adultery, it was treason. The Empress of Rome had declared her husband, the Emperor, dead in all but name. When the news reached Claudius, it shattered what little innocence he had left. The same man who once adored her now trembled with rage and humiliation. The streets of Rome filled with rumors. The palace quaked with fear. Messalina's empire of desire was collapsing, and the gods themselves seemed to turn against her. Soldiers began to gather. Orders were whispered. Messalina's name became a curse. But even as the walls closed in, she refused to surrender. Because before she fell, she would leave her mark on history in the only way she knew: through excess, through defiance, through one final night that would defy all imagination. A night where she would challenge the boundaries of lust and legend itself. A night that would come to be known as the Night of 25 Men. The empire that once trembled beneath Messalina's beauty now began to crumble beneath her madness. In the final days of her reign, Rome buzzed with whispers of her ultimate act of depravity. She was no longer content with lovers or power. She wanted immortality through infamy. Her nights had become darker, her parties wilder, her lust uncontrollable. And then came the night that would seal her fate, the night of 25 men. Some say it began as a drunken challenge, others that it was a ritual of defiance. But all agree on one thing. It was the most obscene act ever witnessed within the Roman Empire. Messalina summoned the city's strongest gladiators, soldiers, and slaves to the imperial palace under the veil of secrecy. The moonlight poured through the marble arches as she entered, dressed not as an empress, but as a goddess of sin. Her body glistened with oil, her eyes burned with a feverish glow, and her laughter echoed like a curse through the halls. The air was thick with wine, incense, and forbidden desire. Each man approached her like a worshipper at an altar, and she, driven by the same hunger that had once made her queen, welcomed them one by one. By dawn, 25 men had fallen before her, broken and exhausted, while she still demanded more. Rome's empress had turned her body into a symbol of rebellion against every moral law, and even the gods seemed to look away. But pleasure cannot hide betrayal forever. As the night faded, news of the orgy reached the ears of her enemies. Claudius, away on campaign, was informed of everything. The secret marriage to Silius, the orgies, the drunken games, the humiliation of his name. The emperor's shock turned to cold fury. Messalina, realizing that her empire of lust was collapsing, ran through the palace like a trapped animal, pleading for mercy that would never come. Her allies abandoned her. Silius was captured and executed within hours. His blood stained the stones where they had once danced together. Meanwhile, Claudius's soldiers surrounded the palace. Messalina fled through the gardens, barefoot, still wearing the jewelry she had used to seduce the empire. She hid among the statues of the gods she had mocked, whispering prayers to any deity who might still listen. But no god answered her. When the soldiers found her, she tried one last time to beg forgiveness, claiming it was all lies. Yet the emperor's envoy had his orders. A blade was placed in her trembling hands. She hesitated, unable to face her own death. So one of the guards did it for her. The sound of steel slicing through silk was the final note of Rome's most scandalous song. Her body fell beside a marble fountain, her blood mixing with the petals of white roses that floated on the water. When Claudius heard she was dead, he did not speak a word. He simply ordered that her name be erased from every inscription, every record, every memory. But history cannot forget a woman like Valeria Messalina. She became the eternal warning, the empress who desired too much, betrayed too deeply, and burned too brightly. In the ruins of Rome, her ghost still lingers in the shadows of broken columns, whispering to anyone who dares to listen that power, when mixed with desire, always ends in destruction.